How should an animal control officer approach an investigation when there is a suspicion of animal cruelty and the only witness is an anonymous tipster? Discuss the legal and procedural steps involved. Answer: when investigating suspected animal cruelty with an anonymous witness, an animal control officer (ACO) must be cautious and follow legal protocols to ensure the integrity of the investigation. The primary steps include documenting the tape, even if the witness is anonymous. The officer must record all information provided in detail, including the specific allegations and any identifying information about the location or the individuals involved. Evidence gathering. The officer should visit the scene to gather physical evidence, such as animal injuries, neglect signs, or unsuitable living conditions. The officer must follow evidence preservation procedures, ensuring chain of custody protocols are maintained. Witness interviews. If possible, the ACO should try to contact other potential witnesses or neighbors who can provide corroborating information. Legal considerations. Under the Animal Welfare Act or equivalent local legislation, the ACO must adhere to the legal standards for conducting investigations, including respecting privacy laws and ensuring any actions do not infringe on rights without probable cause. What are the key components of an animal welfare program designed for elderly or vulnerable pet owners in low-income communities, and how should these programs be tailored to meet their needs? Answer: an animal welfare program aimed at elderly or vulnerable pet owners in low-income communities should address multiple factors such as physical limitations, financial constraints, and emotional or social isolation. Key components include access to veterinary care. The program should provide low-cost or free veterinary services for routine checkups and medical treatment. This ensures pets receive necessary care without causing financial burden. Pet food and supplies distribution. For elderly or low-income individuals, providing pet food, grooming supplies, and other essentials ensures the pet's well-being without straining the owner's resources. Emergency support services. Having a network for emergency care, e.g., boarding or pet sitting services during hospitalizations, helps ensure pets are cared for when their owners face health crises. Home visits and check-ins. Outreach programs involving ACOS or volunteers can conduct home visits to ensure both the pet and the owner are safe and the animal's needs are met. Legal considerations. Programs should align with animal welfare laws such as the Animal Welfare Act, ensuring that elderly owners are not inadvertently subjecting animals to neglect due to lack of resources or understanding of their animals' needs. Mr. Edwards is an animal control officer who is investigating a case of alleged animal neglect. He finds several animals in poor health with signs of dehydration and malnutrition in a home. However, the homeowner insists that the animals are simply independent and refuses to cooperate with the investigation. What should Mr. Edwards do next, considering the legal responsibilities he holds? Answer: in this scenario, Mr. Edwards must follow a structured approach to protect both the animals and ensure legal compliance. The next steps should include documenting the evidence. Mr. Edwards should take detailed notes and photographs of the animal's condition, including any visible signs of neglect such as dehydration, malnutrition, or lack of appropriate shelter. Animal welfare law enforcement, under laws such as the Animal Welfare Act or local equivalent, neglecting animals, especially causing harm through lack of food, water, or shelter, constitutes an offense. Mr. Edwards can use this as the legal basis to take action. Seizure of animals. If the conditions of the animals pose a risk to their health or safety and the homeowner refuses cooperation, the officer may need to use their powers under animal protection laws to seize the animals temporarily for their protection, issuing a warning or citation. In some cases, an official warning or citation may be issued to the homeowner, depending on the severity of the neglect and the specific laws in place. Referral to law enforcement. If the situation escalates or the homeowner becomes confrontational, law enforcement should be notified to ensure the investigation and any potential seizure of animals is carried out legally and safely. Explain the investigative steps that animal control officers must take when investigating a case of suspected animal hoarding. What factors should be considered and how should the officer handle the situation legally and ethically? Answer: when investigating a case of animal hoarding, animal control officers (ACOs) must proceed with care, considering the complexity of the situation. The steps include initial assessment. The officer should conduct a thorough inspection of the property, identifying signs of hoarding, such as overcrowded living conditions, lack of hygiene, and physical distress among the animals. Behavioral signs. Hoarding is often linked to psychological disorders. ACOS must approach the case with sensitivity, understanding that the individual may not intentionally harm the animals. Officers should be observant of behavioral signs of hoarding, including compulsive accumulation of animals and reluctance to part with them. Collaboration with mental health professionals. Due to the psychological aspects of hoarding, a COS should involve social workers or mental health experts who can assess the owner's mental health and provide appropriate support. Animal welfare law enforcement. Under animal protection laws, animals in hoarding situations often suffer from neglect. Officers must ensure that the animals' health and welfare are prioritized by removing them from harm's way. This may involve a formal seizure if immediate harm is detected. What is the role of an animal control officer when collaborating with law enforcement in criminal animal abuse investigations? Discuss the legal and procedural responsibilities in a joint investigation. Answer: in criminal animal abuse investigations, an animal control officer (ACO) plays a crucial role in gathering evidence, evaluating animal welfare, and ensuring compliance with animal protection laws. Key responsibilities include joint investigation procedures. An ACO works alongside law enforcement officers to ensure that all aspects of the investigation comply with criminal law. The ACO's primary role is to assess the condition of the animals involved, while law enforcement handles the legal aspects such as obtaining search warrants and arrests. Collection of evidence. The ACO must ensure that any evidence related to animal abuse, such as injuries, neglect, or insufficient living conditions, is documented accurately. This may include photographs, veterinary reports, and witness statements. Report preparation. The ACO prepares a detailed report outlining their findings, the actions taken, and the condition of the animals. This report is critical in supporting the law enforcement team's criminal investigation and potential prosecution. Testifying in court. If the case progresses to trial, the ACO may be called to testify as an expert witness regarding the condition of the animals and the evidence collected during the investigation. The officer must be well versed in presenting their findings clearly and objectively in court. When conducting an animal abuse investigation, what steps must an animal control officer take to ensure that evidence is collected and preserved in a manner that is legally admissible in court? Answer: to ensure that evidence is legally admissible, an animal control officer must follow specific procedures. Chain of custody. The officer must establish and maintain a clear chain of custody for all evidence, ensuring that each piece of evidence is properly labeled and documented when collected, stored, and transferred. Proper handling of evidence. Evidence such as photographs, samples, e.g., fur or blood, and veterinary reports must be handled in a way that avoids contamination or tampering. For example, photographs should be taken in situ, capturing the condition of the animal and the environment in which it was found. Detailed documentation. Every step of the investigation should be thoroughly documented, including the date and time of evidence collection, the persons involved, and any observations made at the scene. This documentation serves as a record in case the evidence is challenged in court. Legal compliance. All actions taken during the investigation must comply with applicable laws such as search and seizure regulations and animal welfare statutes, ensuring that evidence is collected in a manner that respects legal rights. What should an animal control officer do when they suspect that an animal is being mistreated by its owner, but the owner denies any wrongdoing and the animal is not visibly injured? Discuss the challenges involved and the potential legal recourse. Answer: when an ACO suspects mistreatment but cannot observe obvious signs of injury, the officer faces challenges in gathering definitive evidence. However, there are steps the officer can take. Further investigation. The ACO should perform a more in-depth investigation, including speaking with neighbors, veterinarians, or other witnesses who may have observed the animal's condition over time. Veterinary assessment. If the animal appears healthy but there are suspicions of mistreatment, e.g., neglect, psychological abuse, a veterinary examination may reveal underlying issues such as malnutrition, dehydration, or untreated medical conditions. Legal recourse. If the ACO cannot immediately gather sufficient evidence, they may issue a warning to the owner or request a follow-up inspection. If neglect is suspected, the officer may file a report with law enforcement for further investigation. Use of animal welfare laws. Under animal welfare laws, even if an animal is not visibly injured, mistreatment that affects the animal's well-being could still be grounds for intervention. An ACO could pursue action based on the Animal Welfare Act or equivalent regulations regarding the duty of care. Explain the concept of reasonable care in animal ownership and how animal control officers assess whether an owner is fulfilling their legal obligations. Answer: the concept of reasonable care in animal ownership refers to the legal obligation of pet owners to ensure that animals are provided with adequate food, water, shelter, veterinary care, and a safe environment. Animal control officers assess whether an owner is fulfilling these duties through observation of the animal's condition. The officer will examine the physical health of the animal, looking for signs of malnutrition, neglect, or injury that may indicate inadequate care. Home inspection. The living conditions should be safe and appropriate for the animal, including adequate space, shelter, and cleanliness. Any environmental factors that could harm the animal must be addressed. Behavioral considerations. The ACO must consider the mental and emotional well-being of the animal. Lack of stimulation, socialization, or neglect of psychological needs may also indicate failure to provide reasonable care. Veterinary records. An owner must seek veterinary care when needed. If the animal's health has deteriorated due to lack of care, this may violate the duty to provide reasonable care. What ethical considerations should an animal control officer take into account when dealing with a case of animal abuse that involves children in the household? Answer: when dealing with a case involving children, an ACO must be sensitive to several ethical considerations. Child welfare. The officer should be aware of the potential for co-occurring abuse or neglect in the home. If children are present, the officer must consider whether they are at risk and whether child protective services should be contacted. Respect for family dynamics. While it is essential to intervene in cases of animal abuse, the officer should also consider the emotional and psychological impact on the family, particularly children who may be traumatized by the event. Sensitivity and approach. The officer must handle the case with care, ensuring that children are not unnecessarily exposed to traumatic experiences or made to feel complicit in the abuse. Collaboration with child services. If abuse is suspected to extend beyond the animal, the ACO should collaborate with child protective services to ensure the children's safety. These ethical considerations ensure that the officer addresses both the welfare of the animal and the children, taking a balanced approach to the situation. How can an animal control officer effectively work with animal welfare organizations and law enforcement when investigating complex animal cruelty cases that involve large-scale operations or multiple animals? Answer: in large-scale animal cruelty cases, an animal control officer must coordinate effectively with other organizations, collaborating with animal welfare organizations. These organizations may provide additional resources, such as veterinarians, animal behaviorists, and shelter facilities. Their expertise can help assess the extent of the cruelty and care for the animals involved. Working with law enforcement. In complex cases, law enforcement may be required to handle criminal elements, including the arrest of perpetrators. The ACO and law enforcement must share information, ensure legal procedures are followed, and plan joint operations. Investigation coordination. The ACO should ensure that the investigation is thorough, involving multiple agencies where necessary. Clear communication channels are essential for sharing information such as witness testimony, photographs, and evidence of cruelty. Public awareness and support. Public outreach may also be necessary to gain tips or support for the investigation. However, the officer must ensure that such communication does not jeopardize the privacy of the individuals involved or the integrity of the case. Explain the difference between classical and operant conditioning in animal behavior. Provide practical examples of how each conditioning type is used in animal training. Answer: classical conditioning involves learning through association. It occurs when a neutral stimulus is paired with an unconditioned stimulus to produce a conditioned response. The most famous example is Ivan Pavlov's experiment with dogs, where the sound of a bell, neutral stimulus, was paired with food, unconditioned stimulus, eventually leading to the dog salivating at the sound of the bell alone. Conditioned response. In contrast, operant conditioning involves learning through consequences. It is based on the idea that behaviors followed by positive consequences tend to be repeated, while those followed by negative consequences are less likely to recur. For example, a dog receiving a treat for sitting on command is being trained through positive reinforcement, a type of operant conditioning. Both types of conditioning are integral in shaping animal behavior, with classical conditioning often used in desensitization, e.g., reducing fear responses, and operant conditioning used in teaching specific commands or modifying problematic behaviors. How can an animal control officer effectively identify signs of fear in a dog, and what specific actions should be taken to de-escalate a potentially dangerous situation? Answer: fear in dogs can manifest through various behavioral signs such as trembling, cowering, avoidance, or excessive barking. A fearful dog might also display signs of submission such as tucking its tail between its legs or exposing its belly. Understanding these behaviors is crucial for de-escalating a tense situation. To address the fear, the animal control officer should remain calm and non-threatening, avoiding sudden movements. It's important to allow the dog space and time to adjust without feeling cornered. Using soft, Soothing tones can help to ease the dog's anxiety in cases where fear aggression is exhibited, e.g., growling or snapping. The officer should avoid making eye contact or engaging in direct physical contact, as this may further stress the dog. Legally, officers are often required to use minimal force, following the principle of proportionality as per local regulations on animal handling. These laws dictate that control measures should only escalate in line with the animal's behavior. Mr. Thompson's dog, Bella, was found wandering on the streets without a collar or identification. The local council impounds Bella and Mr. Thompson wishes to reclaim her. What are the legal requirements for returning the dog to Mr. Thompson, and what records should be kept during the impoundment process? Answer: in many jurisdictions, when an animal is impounded, the local authority must follow a formal process for returning the animal to its owner. This usually involves checking for any identification such as a microchip or tag, notifying the owner, and allowing a period during which the owner can reclaim the animal. If Mr. Thompson can provide proof of ownership, such as veterinary records or a description of Bella, the dog should be returned to him, assuming the animal is healthy and there are no other legal prohibitions, such as a history of aggressive behavior. In terms of records, the animal control officer must ensure that detailed notes are kept, including the animal's identification, the reason for impoundment, any conditions of the impoundment, e.g., quarantine if the dog is suspected to be ill, and the owner's details. This information should be logged in the animal control system to ensure transparency and compliance with local regulations on impoundment procedures. Describe the advantages and disadvantages of microchipping versus tagging as methods for animal identification, and explain the relevant legal requirements for each method in animal control. Answer: microchipping involves implanting a small RFID chip under the animal's skin, typically between the shoulder blades. The chip contains a unique identification number that can be read using a special scanner. The main advantage of microchipping is its permanence and reliability, as it cannot be lost, damaged, or removed like a tag. Furthermore, microchips are increasingly recognized internationally, making them valuable for pets traveling abroad. However, microchipping requires proper registration of the chip in a database, which is a legal requirement in many jurisdictions. Additionally, it doesn't provide immediate identification like a tag does. Tags typically attached to an animal's collar are more visible and provide immediate identification. However, they can be lost or removed, and they do not carry as much detailed information as a microchip. Tags are often subject to local laws that require owners to keep their contact details up to date. From a legal standpoint, many regions mandate microchipping for certain types of animals, such as dogs and cats, to facilitate the identification and return of lost pets. Local animal control laws specify that microchips must be registered with the appropriate databases, and failure to do so could result in fines or failure to reunite a lost animal with its owner. How should an animal control officer maintain accurate records when handling a case involving multiple complaints about an animal's behavior? Include both the documentation of the animal's behavior and any legal processes that must be followed. Answer: in cases of repeated complaints, it is critical for the animal control officer to document each instance thoroughly. This includes recording details such as the time, date, and nature of the complaints, any interviews with witnesses, and the steps taken to address the issue. The officer should create a detailed case file for the animal, which includes a description of the animal, any previous reports or citations, and a record of the officer's actions, including warnings or citations issued to the animal's owner. From a legal perspective, the officer must follow due process in accordance with local laws, such as providing the animal owner with the opportunity to rectify the situation before any punitive measures are taken. The officer's records should include copies of any warning notices or orders for behavioral assessments. If the situation escalates, the officer may be required to take legal action, which should also be documented, including court orders or orders for animal behavior evaluations. The case file must be stored in compliance with data privacy regulations, ensuring that all information is kept confidential unless required for legal proceedings. Describe the physiological and behavioral signs that suggest an animal is showing aggression, and what immediate steps should an animal control officer take to safely manage such an animal. Answer: aggression in animals is often characterized by specific behavioral and physiological signs. Behaviorally, an aggressive animal may exhibit raised fur, a stiff body posture, direct staring, bare teeth, growling, or snarling. Physiologically, signs include dilated pupils, rapid breathing, or an intense focus on the perceived threat. To manage an aggressive animal, the officer should first ensure personal safety by maintaining a safe distance. The officer should avoid direct eye contact with the animal, which can be perceived as a challenge, using calm, non-threatening body language and voice. The officer can attempt to de-escalate the situation. If the animal appears to be a danger, the officer may use appropriate restraint equipment, such as a leash or muzzling, while ensuring compliance with local laws regarding the use of force. In certain cases, if the animal is deemed dangerous, it may need to be safely transported to a secure holding facility, and a behavioral assessment may be mandated by law. Emily is an animal control officer who has been assigned to handle a dog named Max, who has been repeatedly reported for aggressive behavior towards other animals. Emily has observed Max growling, lunging, and attempting to bite when he encounters other dogs. What steps should Emily take to assess and address this behavior, considering both training and legal factors? Answer: in this scenario, Emily should first assess Max's behavior by observing the triggers and patterns of his aggression. She needs to determine whether the aggression is fear-based, territorial, or due to past traumatic experiences. Emily can consult with a certified animal behaviorist to perform a comprehensive behavioral evaluation. From a legal standpoint, Emily must ensure that all actions comply with local laws regarding dangerous animals and behavioral assessments. If Max poses a threat to other animals or people, Emily may need to initiate procedures for behavioral modification or restrict Max's interactions with other dogs. In terms of training, Emily could recommend techniques such as desensitization and counter-conditioning, where Max is gradually exposed to the presence of other dogs in a controlled environment. Positive reinforcement, rewarding calm behavior, should be emphasized to replace aggressive responses. If needed, Max's owner may be required to participate in a training program as a condition of keeping Max. Legal processes, such as issuing warnings, fines, or court orders for behavioral evaluations, may also come into play depending on the severity of the aggression. What are the key legal responsibilities of an animal control officer when responding to a complaint of an animal causing a disturbance in a residential area? Answer: animal control officers must adhere to specific legal duties when responding to complaints, including ensuring that they have the proper authority to handle the situation. This might involve verifying that the animal is indeed violating local noise or nuisance ordinances, such as excessive barking. The officer must first attempt to resolve the issue through non-coercive means, such as issuing a warning to the animal's owner. If the disturbance persists, the officer may take further action, such as impounding the animal or issuing a citation. The officer should also document all actions taken and inform the owner of their legal rights, such as the ability to contest the citation or request a hearing. Animal control officers must act in compliance with local public nuisance laws, which outline what constitutes a disturbance, and any legal procedures for impoundment and enforcement must be followed strictly to avoid violations of the animal's or owner's rights. When an animal control officer receives a complaint about an aggressive animal, what information must be included in the report, and how should it be documented for future reference? Answer: the report should include detailed information about the animal's identity, breed, age, physical description, the owner's details if known, and the nature of the aggression, e.g., biting, growling, or chasing. The officer should document the date and time of the complaint, the location, and any actions taken to resolve the issue, witness statements, photographs of any injuries, and a description of any legal steps taken, e.g., issuing a warning or citation, must be included. For future reference, the report should be stored in a secure case file and entered into the animal control management system. Officers should also ensure that any further developments, such as follow-up investigations or court orders, are updated in the case file. What are the ethical considerations involved when implementing behavioral modification techniques for a dog exhibiting aggressive behavior, and how should animal control officers balance the animal's welfare with public safety concerns? Answer: ethically, animal control officers must prioritize the animal's well-being while also ensuring public safety. Behavioral modification techniques such as positive reinforcement and desensitization should be used whenever possible to reduce the animal's fear or aggression without causing harm. The officer should avoid using aversive methods, such as shock collars or harsh punishment, as these can exacerbate the animal's anxiety and aggression. When balancing welfare and safety, the officer should consider options like providing the animal with a secure environment, e.g., a fenced yard or kennel, until training can take place, and ensure that any restrictions placed on the animal are in line with local laws regarding dangerous animals. A veterinarian or certified trainer should be consulted to ensure that the animal is treated humanely and that any public safety concerns are adequately addressed. An animal control officer is called to an area where a dog has been reported as aggressive. Upon arriving, the officer finds that the dog has been abused and is visibly distressed. The owner is present and insists the dog is harmless despite its erratic behavior. The officer must decide whether to seize the dog or leave it with the owner. What ethical considerations should the officer weigh in making this decision? Answer: The officer must prioritize both public safety and the welfare of the animal. Ethical considerations include beneficence acting in the best interest of others, non-maleficence avoiding harm, and justice treating all parties fairly. Given the visible signs of abuse, the officer has a duty to act under animal welfare laws, such as the Animal Welfare Act, to protect the animal from further harm. The officer must consider the immediate safety of the public, as the dog's aggressive behavior could pose a risk. If abuse is confirmed, the officer is legally required to seize the animal while also reporting the situation to appropriate agencies for investigation. Furthermore, the officer must ensure fairness by offering the owner a chance to explain the situation. Though public safety and the animal's health take precedence, the decision should be made transparently, documenting all steps taken to justify the actions in any subsequent legal proceedings. When managing conflicts between pet owners and neighbors regarding noisy dogs, what conflict resolution strategies should be employed to ensure a peaceful resolution while maintaining legal standards? Answer: the officer should use active listening and empathy to understand the concerns of both the pet owner and the neighbor. Conflict resolution strategies include clarifying the underlying issue, e.g., noise, safety, and finding common ground. The officer should explain relevant local laws on noise, such as permissible levels and acceptable times for pets to make noise. It's also important to suggest possible solutions, such as offering the pet owner behavioral training or using noise reduction techniques like soundproofing. Mediation can be a key strategy, offering both parties the chance to express their concerns and collaboratively develop a resolution. Ethical considerations involve fairness and ensuring that the solution does not disproportionately benefit one party over the other. The officer should document all communications and actions taken, ensuring transparency and accountability. Using de-escalation techniques to calm any tension can also be critical. If the situation does not improve, the officer may need to issue a warning or fine in accordance with local ordinances. Ultimately, the officer must enforce laws while maintaining a neutral and supportive stance to ensure compliance and preserve relationships. Design a community outreach program to raise awareness about responsible pet ownership. What key components should the program include, and how can the officer ensure it reaches the target audience effectively? Answer: a community outreach program should include educational workshops on responsible pet ownership covering key topics such as proper animal care, vaccinations, and training. Brochures and resources should be distributed to highlight local animal control laws, pet safety, and the importance of spaying-neutering. Partnering with local organizations such as schools, shelters, and veterinary clinics can help amplify the program's reach and credibility. Offering incentives like discounts for registering pets or vaccinations can encourage participation. To ensure the program reaches a wide audience, it's important to use diverse communication channels such as social media, local radio, community events, and newsletters. The program should be culturally sensitive, providing information in various languages or accessible formats. The officer can also host community days where the public can learn firsthand from experts about responsible pet ownership. To assess effectiveness, the officer can conduct surveys after events or track registration increases, measuring community engagement and understanding. By involving local groups, the program can build a sense of shared responsibility, reducing the number of neglected or abandoned animals in the community. An officer receives a complaint from a member of the public about an abandoned animal near a shopping center. The officer investigates the location and finds the animal in a poor state, but without direct evidence of abandonment. What steps should the officer take in addressing the public's concern while ensuring legal compliance? Answer: the officer must first ensure the animal's immediate welfare by providing necessary care, such as taking the animal to a veterinarian or animal shelter. While there may not be direct evidence of abandonment, the officer should document the animal's condition and the environment to establish a record. Under animal welfare legislation, the officer may be required to report the situation to relevant agencies if neglect or abuse is suspected. The officer can check for identification, such as a microchip or tags, and speak to local residents or businesses to gather more information about the animal's owner. If the owner cannot be found, the officer should follow the legal process for animal seizure and care. The officer must also keep the public informed, offering transparency regarding the actions taken. Additionally, the officer should follow any local laws regarding animal abandonment and ensure that due process is followed in all actions, including proper documentation for potential future legal proceedings. Mr. Williams, an animal control officer, is called to a property where a pet dog has been reported as aggressive. Upon arrival, the dog is barking aggressively and the owner is shouting at the officer, refusing to cooperate. The situation is escalating. What de-escalation techniques should Mr. Williams use to ensure the safety of everyone involved while also adhering to professional conduct standards? Answer: Mr. Williams should remain calm, keeping his voice steady and non-threatening to prevent further escalation. He should maintain a safe distance from the dog and avoid making sudden movements that might provoke it. Using non-confrontational body language, such as keeping hands visible and avoiding direct eye contact with the dog, can help reduce tension. With the owner, Mr. Williams should use active listening, acknowledging the owner's frustration without interrupting. He should express understanding, using phrases like, "I understand this situation is difficult for you." The officer should calmly explain his role and the necessity of evaluating the dog's behavior to ensure public safety. If the situation continues to escalate, the officer may call for backup to ensure safety. All actions should be documented to maintain transparency and compliance with professional conduct standards, including reporting any use of force or escalation of the situation. Additionally, Mr. Williams should explore alternatives like offering information about local animal behavior programs or suggesting a behavioral evaluation for the dog. What role do animal control officers play in the promotion of responsible pet ownership, and how can their actions impact public perceptions of animal control services? Answer: Animal control officers play a crucial role in educating the public about responsible pet ownership, which includes proper pet care, spay neutering, and ensuring pets are microchipped or tagged. They serve as a resource for the community, providing guidance on pet health, behavior, and legal responsibilities. By promoting responsible pet ownership, officers can reduce the incidence of neglected or abandoned animals. Their actions can also positively influence public perceptions by showing that animal control is focused on education and prevention rather than simply enforcement. When officers engage with the community in a compassionate, non-punitive manner, they build trust and cooperation. Public education programs, outreach initiatives, and accessible information help demystify animal control laws and reduce resistance to regulations. By demonstrating professionalism and empathy, officers can create a more positive image of animal control, moving beyond enforcement to serve as proactive community partners in animal welfare. When negotiating with a pet owner about the containment of their dog, which has been repeatedly reported for running loose, what mediation techniques should the officer use to ensure compliance while preserving a positive relationship with the owner? Answer: Mediation techniques in this scenario involve open communication and problem solving. The officer should start by actively listening to the pet owner's concerns, offering empathy and understanding, and focusing on resolving the issue collaboratively rather than imposing a solution. By framing the conversation in terms of mutual interests, such as ensuring the dog's safety and the neighbor's peace, the officer can work toward finding a compromise. The officer should explain local ordinances in a non-confrontational manner, helping the pet owner understand their legal responsibilities. Suggesting practical solutions like installing a secure fence or seeking dog behavior training can help the pet owner comply with regulations. Offering resources such as low-cost solutions or community programs for pet containment can make compliance more accessible. Throughout the process, the officer should remain impartial and ensure that the discussion stays solution-focused, documenting the outcome for future reference. Explain the importance of involving local community organizations in animal welfare initiatives and how collaboration between animal control and these groups can enhance the effectiveness of animal control programs. Answer: Involving local community organizations in animal welfare initiatives enhances the overall impact of animal control efforts by leveraging additional resources and expertise. These organizations, including shelters, rescue groups, and advocacy organizations, provide valuable support in the form of funding, volunteer labor, and specialized knowledge in animal care and behavior. By partnering with these groups, animal control officers can reach more pet owners through education campaigns such as spay-neuter programs or low-cost veterinary care. Collaborative efforts also create a sense of shared responsibility, fostering a community-wide commitment to animal welfare. For example, partnering with local schools can increase youth engagement in animal welfare, while working with veterinarians can improve public understanding of pet health and safety. These partnerships enhance public perceptions of animal control, demonstrating that it is not just about enforcement, but also prevention and education. What is the role of public education in ensuring compliance with animal control laws, and how can animal control officers effectively disseminate information to different segments of the community? Answer: Public education is essential in ensuring compliance with animal control laws because it informs the community about their responsibilities regarding pet ownership, including vaccination requirements, leash laws, and animal cruelty statutes. Animal control officers can effectively disseminate information through various channels, such as social media, community events, and collaboration with local schools or businesses. Providing multilingual materials and ensuring accessibility for disabled individuals are important steps in reaching all segments of the community. Officers can also host informational workshops, distribute flyers at local events, and collaborate with veterinarians to promote responsible pet ownership. Educating the public on the consequences of non-compliance helps foster respect for animal laws and encourages community support for animal control initiatives. What are the key components of an effective animal control education program, and how can such a program positively influence the community's attitude toward animals and their care? Answer: an effective animal control education program should include clear, accessible information on pet care, responsible ownership, and local animal laws. It should focus on promoting positive behaviors such as proper pet nutrition, regular veterinary care, and humane treatment of animals. Workshops and interactive sessions, such as Meet Your Local Shelter events, can engage the community directly. Programs should also incorporate practical information like how to report animal cruelty or what to do in case of a lost pet. The program should be tailored to different audience segments, ensuring that both adults and children can benefit. By educating the public about the responsibilities of pet ownership and animal welfare laws, such programs foster compassionate and informed community. This can reduce pet abandonment, encourage adoption from shelters, and lead to better overall care for animals.